Ready to go. Hey guys, this is Eric Hovind from Creation Today in Pensacola, Florida, and thanks for hanging out with us. Got Daniel Johnson here with me from The Truth Group. He did the famous, if not infamous, DVD on dinosaurs, a fascinating subject, the truth about dinosaurs. And we have on the line again two friends, atheists, that we're going to have a good discussion with today. So Art and Xbox, can you guys just reintroduce yourselves?
Hello, my name is Arthur. I am Russian. I live in Czech Republic. I'm an atheist. I was a Christian at one time. And, I guess that's it.
Right on. I'm Xbox. I live in the Midwest in the U.S. and I'm an atheist as well. And I'm searching for what I can with truth, kind of thing.
Excellent. Daniel, a little introduction about you.
My name is Daniel.
Got that one.
I'm from a little town in Texas. Maybe you heard of it. It's called Dallas.
I've seen it on the map. It's about that big.
I'm a Christian now. I used to be a heathen, and I like the truth. And so it's fun searching out the truth and learning.
If you missed it, we had a conversation, or I had a conversation last week or 2 weeks ago now with Art and with Xbox, and it ended up being a very philosophical discussion. And the conclusion was actually pretty interesting to me. It's kind of something that I already assumed, but then after the whole conversation, going back to that conclusion, I thought today we'd take a slightly different approach and really talk about, Xbox, you just said you are interested in truth and the pursuit of truth. So I thought we'd talk really just some basic definition type stuff. What is science? What is truth? Is evolution part of science? I thought that might be some of our bigger discussion today. Is evolution actually part of science? So were you able to find that quote that we were looking at the other day or no?
Yes.
Daniel has a great quote for us. This is from
G.K. Chesterton.
An old one. An
Yes.
old quote, not an old G.K. Chesterton.
Yeah, well, he was probably old when he wrote it.
He
So
is
that's
no
good.
longer alive. So.
All right, so bear with me on this. It's at least 2 sentences. But the new rebel is a skeptic and will not entirely trust anything. He has no loyalty, therefore he can never be really a revolutionist. And the fact that he doubts everything really gets in his way when he wants to denounce anything. For all denunciation implies a moral doctrine of some kind, and the modern revolutionist doubts not only the institution he denounces, but the doctrine by which he denounces it. As a politician, he will cry out that war is a waste of time, and then as a philosopher, that all life is a waste of time. No, wait. War is a waste of life, and then as a philosopher, all life is a waste of time. A Russian pessimist will denounce a policeman for killing a peasant, and then prove by the highest philosophical principles that the peasant ought to have killed himself. The man of this school goes first to a political meeting where he complains that savages are treated as if they were beasts. Then he takes his hat and umbrella and goes on to a scientific meeting where he proves that they practically are beasts. In short, the modern revolutionist, being an infinite skeptic, is always engaged in undermining his own minds. In his book on politics, he attacks men for trampling on morality. In his book on ethics, he attacks morality for trampling on men. Therefore, the modern man in revolt has become practically useless for all purposes of revolt. By rebelling against everything, he has lost his right to rebel against anything. And that was written in 1908 in a book by G.K. Chesterton. And it sounds remarkably like he's writing today, but of course that was over 100 years ago.
So let's get down to some definitions. Art and Xbox, tell me, if you had to put a definition on science, how would you define science?
Xbox, you want to go first?
Yeah, I don't know that I have a real clear definition on science, but I'd probably go with explaining what we observe.
Well, I would say, first... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine.
Yeah, I like to say that I'm not a scientist. I'm not really qualified to define science, but from what I've Googled quickly, I know this isn't exactly anything kind of, scientific. This is basically Google, but the definition here is the intellectual and practical activity encompassing the systematic study of the structure and behavior of the physical and natural world through observation and experiment. So I would go with that.
Okay, I like that one. Our Xbox, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that.
So if we were to simplify it just a little bit more from the words that they use, really it's things that we can know because we can see it, we can test it, and we can demonstrate it. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
How, this depends because there's a lot of different fields of science, and if you're just gonna kind of boil it down to things that you know, then there is a possibility for equivocation. So I would, like I said before, I think we talked about his definition in the first Hangout as well about science. And like I said before, I would tentatively agree, but I reserve the right to explain, maybe there might be an equivocation going on later on.
Okay. So when I think of science, though, on a very basic level, I go, okay, at its base roots, science is knowledge that we can gain about our world through the observation of it, the study of it, the testing of it, the repeatable and testable evidence that we see. Daniel, you got any thoughts on what science is?
Mine's a little more basic, and of course, I have a different foundation because in the I guess the definition that you read from Google there talked about things that in the natural world. So right away at the foundation of that definition, it's already ruling out anything supernatural. And so I'm on the other end of the spectrum, obviously, because I know that God exists and I believe in God and I want to follow Him. And so science ultimately is the study of something, and no matter what you're going to study, it's something that exists, right? You can't study something that doesn't exist. You can't. I mean, you could try to study fairies or something like that, but it's not really going to be very productive. But it's the study of things that are already there, whether you can see them or not, like gravity, magnetism. Obviously, you can't see that, but it is there, and we can study it. And so ultimately, science is the study of God's creation. Because anything that exists was created by God, whether it's visible or invisible. And so if you're studying something, it's going to eventually lead you to the creator of that something. And that's why we like science so much, because it always points back to the creator.
And I do like science. And Xbox, you said, hey, you're in the pursuit of truth. You want to find what truth is. Let me ask this question and take it to this level, and then let's sit here for a few minutes and discuss this. Is evolution part of science? I'll let one of you guys take that away, and then we'll just kind of respond to that.
Yeah. As far as I know, evolution itself is what we observe, and then there's the theory that describes the mechanisms. So I would have to say, from the extent that I know it, it's part of science.
Xbox, do you have any input there?
That was Xbox. I think you meant me.
I'm sorry, Art, do you have any?
Well, I guess I agree. Yeah. I have no objections. Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. You said evolution is part of science. Let's do one more definition, and then we'll talk about this. What is evolution? How would you define evolution?
The change in allele frequencies over time. I think the best one that I go with. Allele frequencies in a population over time.
I would agree. Yeah.
Change in allele frequencies in a population.
Yeah, over time.
Over time.
Okay. All right. Now let me get down to the. I classify evolution, and I put it really in 6 different categories because ultimately, in order for us to have a change in allele frequencies over time, what we're really talking about there is variations within kinds of animals. You're talking about, and it was actually a Russian atheist evolutionist that coined the terms micro and macro evolution. Would you guys agree with those, the concept or the idea of micro and macro evolution that was?
Me, myself, not really, and I'm pretty sure most of the scientific community is on our side. I think there is no distinction to be made, especially mechanically. I mean, unless you can point out a mechanism in nature that distinguishes macro and micro evolution, that is, small changes not being able to accumulate to bigger changes.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I would tend to agree with that. And yeah, I guess I would agree with you if you can agree to micro and macro creation.
Define that for me. I mean, I'll give a definition of micro and macro evolution. Define micro and macro creation.
I would have to say micro creation is creating a table from a tree, and macro creation would be ex nihilo or you know, like from the Bible, like the spoken word or something coming from nothing almost, or coming from, yeah, from nothing. Or
Okay.
I really, it's hard to explain that one, because I know the Bible says God is something, so there was never a nothing. But I think you know what I mean with the spoken word kind of thing of
Yeah, out of
creation.
nothing. I get that.
Right on.
Yeah, and I would say that's the difference between creating and making. Would that be a good way to identify that? One is creating from nothing as far as, well, I'll say creating from nothing and then fashioning something that's already been created. That's really what you're referring to, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay. Let me ask you, what evidence do we have of a change in allele frequencies equaling a dog coming from a rock or a rose coming from a rock? How do you... Because when I break it down, I would break it down into 6 different types of evolution. You got to have the micro, which is your definition, a change in allele frequencies over time. I agree with that. I don't have any problem with that. I wouldn't call it evolution.
You might want to explain allele frequencies, though.
Okay.
Because I don't know if anybody, like watching, I mean, that's one of those scientifically technical words. So what would be a simpler way to put that for all the audience?
Allele frequencies is basically the genetic information. On the ends of your genome are the alleles. That's correct, right? The very ends?
Yeah.
And so you're literally changing the frequency of those, literally making slight, I'll call it slight, genetic modifications to the DNA, to the information that is in our bodies, or that makes up anything.
Yep,
Right.
I'd agree.
Yeah.
Okay? So those slight genetic variations, something that we can observe today. We observe the Chihuahua, which is now not a dog, coming from what was originally...
It's a dog.
I know, but it's a Chihuahua.
I just wanted to let them know that you knew that's a dog.
It is, but
I might take it seriously there.
People might take that.
Well, they might.
I have 2 miniature ones here, and I've looked that up before, and some will say that it comes from...
Uh-oh.
Lost you there, Xbox.
Did you freeze up?
So
You should be right back.
here's what we often see. We often see the evidence of microevolutions, allele frequencies over time. We see evidence of that kind of stuff happening. We'll see evidence of, hey, I look different than my parents. Daniel, do you look different than your parents?
I look different from his parents as well.
This is a true statement.
Yes.
This would be an example of what I would call microevolution. Now, here's what happens, and maybe Arts, until we get Xbox back, you can fill us in here. I see all the time evolutionists saying, hey, no, those little changes are evidence of the big changes. Tell me what you think about that.
Well, I think that's not the only evidence. That's the sort of strict scientific definition, as you guys said before. The kind of overarching evidence is actually more of a